listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Mutual Broadcast Network, X-Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, and Radio X throughout Europe. If you'd like to send me an email, my email address is xzone@xzoneradio.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And our radio website, where you can find out what we've been doing in the past, what we're doing today in the present, and what we're going to be doing tomorrow in the future. Just visit www.xzoneradio.com. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is Karen MARR, and she is a natural-born clairvoyant and has been able to communicate with spiritual energy ever since a child. After her parents became aware of her abilities, they sent her to spend more time with her grandmother. And apparently it was the grandmother and her family that had this gift that traveled through the generations. Now, once Karen reached adulthood, people sought her out for her ability with their entities. This was when people would ask for palm readings or to channel a spirit to ask a question or questions. Mostly, Karen specialized in contact with the spirits of those who had passed away yet still remain. In 1995, after moving to Charleston, South Carolina from Ohio, again, people began asking for readings by referrals from others. In 2009, Karen began giving ghost tours for Bulldog Tours. Through them, access to several haunted locations became possible. This was one way that she could get nearer to spirits that had already made contact with her. Joining me now is Karen MARR. And Karen, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thanks for having me. How you doing tonight out there?
Well, we're doing fine, Karen. Tell us about your youth, and how did being a person who was able to communicate with spirits affect you as a child?
Well, when I was younger, I was a very young toddler when this started to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I was around my two friends, and I grew up in a neighborhood where everybody was Catholic, and this wasn't exactly something that was widely accepted, religiously speaking. And when I get around my girlfriends, we would talk if we had imaginary friends. You know, we're just kids talking. And I had this one imaginary friend that was a middle-aged man I called Henry, and I had detail about how he dressed. He wore pants and a shirt, and he had suspenders, and he was sort of a kindly, chunky-built, dark-haired man that was like a grandfather type. And, you know, he would kind of joke around with me, and, you know, if I didn't know any better, you'd almost think the man could wear a clown suit. He was just real sort of gentle and enjoyed being outside. I was outside in fields around the flowers and stuff. He seemed to come around. I'd see him.
Mm-hmm.
So these were some of my imaginary friends. Well, that's what they were called, but I thought that's what they were.
What was it like the first time that you were able to communicate with someone who was on the other side, that was remaining behind instead of going towards the light?
When I realized it?
Yeah. What was it like?
I was a bit older then. I was more into school, and my mind was starting to be more constructed, as it does as you grow older into adult life, more structured and more time managed. And at that point, I'd actually realized that I was having contacts with spirits, because prior to that, I didn't know any better. I was a child. It was just like imagination, living in imagination. So when I finally realized it, I was probably kindergarten going into first grade, and there was an entity that would come to my parents' house that was that was really scary. It was very shadow and dark, and would enter the one room in the window, I should say, across the way from where my room was at the time, and come across the hallway, and you would see that. I know my sisters have, from talking to them as we were growing up. They've seen the same entity, and it would just sort of challenge you to see if you would be afraid of it. It would feed on your fear. So I got to a point where, from working with my grandmother and using some of the things she had taught me about prayer, she always taught me to pray about when you see a spirit, to see if they are okay to be some communicative with. If they don't mean you evil or they don't mean you harm.
All right, Karen, please stand by. We've got to take a break. Exonation, Karen MARR is our guest, www.bulldogtours.com. And we'll be back discussing the strange, the haunted, graveyards, and much more surrounding Charleston, South Carolina, and beyond. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We'll be back. Don't go away. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Wilda Wiecka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we will weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Wilda Wiecka, and the Science of Magic right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. Karen MARR is our guest this hour, Exonation. www.bulldogtours.com. Karen, let me ask you a question. Does everyone become a ghost when they die?
No, I don't believe everybody becomes a ghost when they die. But, it's a great change. You go from your fleshly body, and instantly at that moment, you no longer have any ability of what you had in your fleshly body. Good example is you no longer have the ability of touch. You're not seeing, you don't hear. The things we mostly want for in our life are connected to our actual body. Once you pass, you turn into your spiritual person or spiritual being, what I should say. You become this element of entity of atomic sort of material. You become ionic and protons, neutrons, ions. You become those three elements without a charge on your ionic system. What is manifested on our physical body is our electrolytes. We drink a lot of fluids to keep our electrical charge in our body going.
Mm-hmm.
This is some of what helps us form our consciousness. We think, therefore we am, or are. Hate to be a little Nietzsche on you, but basically, I think, therefore I am is we really do think, therefore we are. We measure our reality in time spans and calendars and clocks, but I don't find spirit do as much of that. The longer they're passed over, the longer they've been dead, in other words, the less they seem to have any sort of tetherment or remembrance or memories or anything that they brought from their physical life over to the next side. Now, whether or not they've left and gone on, that's whether or not they've passed on and gone towards what is lit. A lot of them tell me dark.
So why do they stick around certain places? Like, why do they hang around homes where they used to live, or battlefields that are that are hundreds of years old where they died if they have no recollection after a certain period of time?
Their energy itself has a tethered attachment to the emotional side of it, and the thought pattern side of it, that their energy when it left that spot is still attached to. They haven't learned to let go, to forgive, to repent even.
How do we know this?
You can make a spiritual, I guess you'd call it, you make a sort of a pilgrimage in life. You can make a spiritual pilgrimage after death. Some spirits say they see the light right away. Some say it's at a distance. And I know from working with spirits that some of them, as they take time, as they light up, you talk to them, you got to kind of work with them a bit. They don't have a body to work it through, and they get stuck in their emotion. It turns into this quagmire, almost like quicksand that holds them in their spot. They're frozen in their emotion.
So why would ghosts hang around pubs or hang around cemeteries? It makes no sense to me.
Cemeteries in Charleston is because it was the tradition here to move headstones, never move the bodies, and already use the graves. There's almost 250,000 bodies under a city.
Okay, so how does that affect the spirits?
Well, their desecration is because the dead is overlapped. It also is because the city has been involved in at least 5 different wars. There's been a great deal of sickness that has been in and out of this port that was established in 1670. So those overlapping tragedies have made these imprints, if you will, of emotion and of thought patterns upon these energies, which they don't leave, especially if they had something like yellow fever or smallpox or something that caused you to be a bit of comatose before you actually pass from the living to the dead.
And how do we know this to be fact?
Well, I know now when we go into places with the gadgets that we use for investigation, they measure in what's called GOS, and it's a flux in the density of the electromagnetic field. The Earth reads between 30 and 60 GOS, and most of the equipment we use to read spirits reads that GOS level. We'll pick it up. The other thing they do, their energy converts to a frequency. They can speak through an open channel on a radio or a radio-type gadget, even if you're surfing the channels. Only in a hotspot, of course. You're talking about an area that's got a lot of paranormal energy connected to it. In other words, you can't drive through your town and scanning your radio stations and just picking up on dead people talking to you through the car. You're going to have to pull up by some place that a lot of people have given accounts of strange things happening, voices when people weren't there, things opening and closing, lights turning on and off, stenches they couldn't explain, objects they set down that moved. They swore to God they heard somebody talking that wasn't there. They could have thought they saw something that wasn't there. They took a picture, something was odd. Oh, God, I feel like something's watching me. I mean, there's just this gambit of everything from emotions to what you see, feel, smell, hear. The only thing I've never done is tasted a dead person, thank goodness.
So how do we know that this is real and not psychosomatic?
Well, I have asked that question myself. It's not like I haven't asked other people. Mostly because during investigations, there has been a great deal of things that have been photographed that have been actually recorded on EMF, electromagnetic field meters, EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon, and basically on audio tape and on still pictures of a variety of spiritual encounters, everything from light ghosts to shadow people, doppelganging. It's vortex rods that tend to draw energy. There's a variety of this that has already been filmed and already has some evidence of it.
Well, that
does. Make a variety of equipment to pick it up.
Okay,
another way to
slow down.
Sorry,
you're going a mile a minute here.
I'm sorry.
I need to understand what you're saying. So tell me, how do you know that a lot of these variances in the equipment that you're using isn't being caused by, for example, cell towers or by or by streams or ley lines, that some of the events that you're actually perceiving to be paranormal are very normal?
Sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes that we are receiving it as paranormal as normal. That's when you come in with a type of methodology we refer to as debunking. Debunking is when you start to really look around at what your surroundings, turn the lights on, see if something's there that would have made that reflected in your picture. Look around, see if something would have made that sound on its own, and listen closely. It might have been water dripping that, the reverberation of it through the building sounded like muffled voices below you. You see what I'm saying? You got to really look around and start to ask yourself, okay, I have this here, and what in my environment might have made it on its own without it being anything paranormal? So you roll things out, even to the point where we bring up the lights and take baseline pictures with all the lights on during an investigation to make sure that we're finding what we think we are.
So what is...
And most of the time when I feel something, if I ask them to come on, that will come up on a meter. And I don't just mean one. I mean 2 of them, 3 of them at a time. The electromagnetic field meters, they'll move the lights on them. Some of them are made with the ability to utilize like a seance where they move the needle once for yes and twice for no.
All right, so let me ask you, what are you hoping to accomplish when you and other ghost investigators go out into the field with all your equipment? What are you hoping to find? What are you hoping to accomplish?
I don't know that I'm necessarily hoping to accomplish.
Well, what's the main reason for going out?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, well, what is the main reason for doing what you do then?
It's a gift. I'm born with it, and this energy exists here, that I do know. I am only just a vehicle that just has the ability. I go into these areas to offer these spirits an opportunity to tell their story, an opportunity to seek repentance or seek forgiveness, an opportunity, even if they just want to tell somebody their story, that might help them pass. Maybe just to even help them understand that what they thought was there is no longer there. And sometimes repeatedly going back and working with them like that does help them to understand they're free to go.
Free to go where?
Pass on. You start to work with the equipment to see if you can talk to them about what they may have believed in life. Most spirits look at it from a perspective of what their belief system was in life. Did they believe in God or Jesus Christ? Did they were they of a persuasion, say, of like Gala? There was a lot of Gala spirits here. Did they believe in any kind of religious persuasion at all? What is their background? You talk to them and give them an opportunity to tell you about themselves by building on familiarities that you bring through the equipment. Like you ask them if you believe in God, and on those seance meters, they bring the needle over once for yes. You may say that, honestly, I'm asking you if you believe in God, and they say yes very adamantly a second time. You can pretty much take that as yes. They're saying yes. When you're using those meters, look around you. If you're around conduit, you're not around any of the breaker boxes, you're not around any place where you're even close to light poles that could cause that effect of electricity making a full circuit in which it turns into electromagnetic energy.
But what about, whoa, slow down. You're doing it again. You're doing it again. You're going so fast.
It's a bad habit.
I can see that. Okay, so you've got all this equipment. What about microwaves? What about the cell tower? These are all over the place. How do you account for false readings?
These are some of your debunking. First of all, your equipment only works within a few feet of you. It doesn't work within mass miles. You look around the place you're going to investigate or where you're looking for your spirits at or where you're picking up your energy. That's part of debunking, of looking at what's around your environment.
Why is it debunking instead of actually looking for a cause instead of a spook?
That's just the term they use in the paranormal world for actually looking for a reasonable cause of what it is. We go with that first before we start to go with a paranormal reason.
And what kind of training do paranormal investigators get to become parascientists with all these equipment, all this different type of equipment that they're using?
they get the equipment. They're trained by others who have been using the equipment. It's a matter of putting the time in with the equipment, of using it and reviewing the evidence and reviewing places that you've been. Mm-hmm. I'm fortunate in this that I work in the jail. I've had a long span to work with the same group of spirits in the same structures. So I've become rather used to what is the building and what would possibly be something else.
So all right, we've got to take a break. We'll be back. Don't go away.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Thomas Jefferson was a Burgess of 27 when he met Martha Wales Skelton, a 22-year-old widowed heiress who was fondly called Patty by her family. They were married on January the 1st, 1772, and they took up residence in a cabin on the building site on top of a Virginia mountain that Thomas had named Monticello. As Thomas and Patty slowly built their first version of the great house at Monticello, the Revolutionary War was heating up. Patty, with difficulty, bore 5 children, but only 2 girls survived. Thomas's political career developed to the point where he was often away from home, but after he authored and signed the Declaration of Independence in Philadelphia, he resolved never again to leave his wife. He was elected the governor of Virginia, just as that state became the Revolution's last battleground. The Revolutionary War ended in 1781, and Thomas gladly retired altogether to my family, my farm, and my books. But Patty continued to want to bear her treasured husband a son, and late in the summer of 1782, she died of kidney failure at the age of 33, 4 months after having borne yet another girl. Thomas was so devastated by her death that he never remarried. He mourned her for the rest of his life, even as he helped to frame the peace in France and then became the first Secretary of State, the second Vice President, and the third President of the United States. This story is true. Thomas Jefferson was such an obsessive letter writer and record keeper that we know where he was and what he was doing nearly every day of his adult life. Every significant thing he says in My Thomas comes from his contemporary writings. My Thomas by Roberta Grimes is now available at Barnes & Noble, Costco, Target, Books A Million, Hudson Booksellers, Kmart, Walmart, Sam's Club, Walgreens, CVS, and online at Amazon.com. You can visit Roberta Grimes online at www.robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
Unwilling to be the government's deadly assassin, gifted psychic Kahara Mitchell went AWOL and ended up buried under rubble in the wake of a great tsunami. She regained consciousness far from Earth on the medical ship of a Daguerrean intergalactic fleet. Has she been rescued or abducted by aliens? The Chalice of Carrie, Kahira O'Donnell's latest paranormal science fiction romance, is the passionate story of an Earth woman and her destined mates, twin kings from another galaxy. Kahara uses her gifts fighting alongside Lords Rom and Ra in a war that will determine the destiny of galaxies. The Chalice of Carrie by Kahira O'Donnell is now available at KahiraO'Donnell.com or at Amazon.com. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. What happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Annie Callahan, dedicated to negotiating a position for Earth within the Daguerrean Coalition, had trained for 3 years to become an Earth ambassador. Yet, the very eve of her arrival at the capital ruling planet, she is claimed as destined mate to an oversized, mating-maddened vamp who swears he will never release her. Lord Aztaran, king of the Macian sector, has waited over 900 years for his destined mate. Having found her as an alpha vamp, he is unable to relinquish Annie, virtually holding her hostage until he can claim her. Yet Macians cannot survive without their mate's love. How could he strip her of her citizenship, her ambassadorship, and her freedom and expect to win her heart? With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is the latest book in this exciting series, The Daguerrean Chronicles, guaranteed to keep readers coming back for more. With All That I Am by Kahira O'Donnell is available on Amazon.com and KahiraO'Donnell.com. Karen MARR is our guest of this hour, X-Zone Nation, www.bulldogtours.com. So, Karen, am I to understand that you work within the correctional system?
I work in an old jail building that used to be one of the first jails ever constructed in our country after it became our country.
So what do you do there when you're not doing tours?
We do tours during the evening, but we do investigations where we start at midnight. We all, anybody in the public or a paranormal group that would like to come down, we go and we shut into the place from 12 to 2 or 12 to 4.
So you do not actually work for that jail or penitentiary now. You just work for the tour company.
Right now, but I do side cases on my own when people ask. A lot of people email me for palm readings.
Okay. Tell us about your ability to be a clairvoyant.
A lot of times with that, you'll find that things have energy on them. So when you do a reading for someone, being near them helps. If you're reading a living bit of energy, you have to be within an area in which you can kind of tune in on what they are, what you're picking up on. If it's a deceased energy, then an object that was related to the deceased or being where they are at, where their energy would be concentrated, or a person that they are drawn to because of their connection to them in life, is a way to get a reading off of the spirit that has passed, where you can get an answer for a person, a living person who's come to ask you a question, say, of their deceased grandparent. You might hold their handkerchief. You might hold their locket. It's something that holds their energy, which starts to bring you to the subject of haunted objects, huh?
All right. So, why do the spirits hang around like this property that you bring all these people to go through the tours? How many years have you been there, and how many people would you say have gone through during the time that you've been there and conducted investigations at the location?
Probably well over 1,000 now. The investigations have been going on for about 5 years. The evening tours I've been doing for about 8 now. Also through the cemetery. We also go through a dungeon that was used during the time of pirates and during the American Revolution. So there's several locations around Charleston that are haunted that aren't just ones we go to on tour. But this makes for an interesting tour, and you get to talk to people not just about the deceased that are there, but a bit about paranormal investigation and how that works and the science behind it. So it makes for quite an interesting presentation for them.
And how much do people pay to go through on the prison tour, for example?
I have no idea. Office takes care of that.
And how many different tour guides are there?
The jail, there's probably about 5 of us right now. There's almost about 35 to 40 guides that give night tours at Bulldog.
Wow.
But there's only about 5 guides that really work the jail, and mainly it's because the building. Now, I'm not going to tell you that the other guides can't give the tour, because they can't. They've all had, many of them have had experiences in the building where they won't go back.
So why do you think the paranormal is such a big industry these days?
I think people are looking for answers.
Or cheap thrills?
I think they see what's going on in the world and in their lives, and a lot of people have had experiences, and with the way things are going in the world, it's coming together, so to speak. That very old stuff you read about how the veil comes down, the wall comes down, and the living become more aware of the side of the deceased, and this all starts to come together. There's a lot more of it going on now. I mean, it's much more paranormally active than it ever was when I was young and first learning about it.
Or has it always been this busy, but with the advent of all this communication equipment that we have where everything is instantaneous, it's just become more known?
Well, it didn't help the Parker brothers that patented the Ouija board.
Okay, so what's that got to do with anything? You've lost me here.
That's another one. Well, Ouija boards are one of those, are an old old method of communicating with the dead. There's a lot of it. It's been going on since the 1850s. It's not a new sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Seances have been used, and communicating with the dead has been used. It's older than the Bible and the life of Christ itself.
What is the Ouija
It's done
board?
in very different methods. Now it's done with scientific equipment that measures Gauss, the flux of intensity, the electromagnetic field.
You see, this is where I have a problem, because you're saying it's used using scientific instrumentation, and yet science does not acknowledge the paranormal.
There's parapsychologists.
They're not scientists, though.
How can you get a degree in psychology? You'd have to have a degree in psychology to be a parapsychologist. And
No, you don't.
maybe it's not a recognized
you
field,
don't.
but a lot of other fields have not been a recognized field before it came to its time.
But there's a lot of people that claim to have certain powers or gifts within the paranormal who are nothing but a bunch of phonies. Here in Canada, reading a person or giving a person a reading where money is exchanged is against the law.
I don't ask anybody for money.
No, I'm just telling you about why the public in general looks at the paranormal through cautious eyes. Because over
and
the
I
years...
cannot blame them,
Yeah.
and they should. There are a lot of charlatans that are out here charging people far too much money. They're ripping them off. They're conning people, trying to give them false hope in their futures and false answers from the dead when they're grieving, and it's actually rather sickening.
So how does a member of the public know who's legitimate, who's not legitimate?
Because generally, if somebody's legitimate, they'll tell you things that they couldn't possibly know about you.
That's the only way?
I can do it within a certain range of the person if I'm reading their living energy. I can start to talk about what their life's like, whether they have turmoil in it right now or not, whether they're single or not.
Okay.
I can pick out if they have children, if they're the marrying type, if there's somebody who enjoys reading a book or they enjoy adrenaline sports.
All
I
right.
can take all that out of your hand and more, as well as your living energy and more. You're a skeptic. You've been at it for 25 years and talked to so many people, and you're a fellow who likes things to be tangible. You like evidence you can put in your hand. And not only can you not get evidence on this, but you can't really find a real good example of the sciences that goes behind it.
You see, you could have read that on the internet because that's in my bio.
I didn't really read your bio.
Well, how do I know that?
You don't. I mean, I clicked on the site to see if I looked at X-Zone Radio, but I didn't go on and read your bio.
See, I'm not a skeptic. You're wrong there. I want to believe, but I want proof. There's a big difference between wanting to believe and being a non-believer.
I didn't say you were. Skeptic doesn't mean you're a non-believer. It means you want proof.
Who doesn't want proof?
Well, people believe before they get that far. They've had some experience in their life that they believe was a genuine spiritual experience.
How do we explain the fact that, let's say, a group of people go out to a place that's supposed to be haunted? Not everybody in the group will experience something, while others will. How do we explain that?
It's the people who are experiencing something. The ones that have not, the only way that's something different is if the ones that have not experienced have not been to the same locations as those who experienced. Generally on investigation, if you got somebody who hit a hot spot that's having experience, they're going to tell the other people they're with so they can get other people to go over there and get more people who have an experience. If they're having more than one person who has the experience, a lot of times we'll design an experiment to see if we can get the spirit to acknowledge itself.
Why is it so important to have interaction with the spirit? Why don't people just leave the dead alone?
Because in the place where I work in particularly, they don't leave. The building's built over a graveyard to begin with, where they buried over top of each other, and then they built a jail over it, and they hanged people in the backyard, and they starved them to death in it.
Okay, so?
You're probably going to have a lot of spirits there forever. It's not ever an area that's ever going to be cleansed. There was too much tragedy, and a lot of those spirits don't let go. They're trapped in that quagmire of the despair and sadness, and it brought them to that.
But what would happen if those spirits did leave?
Well, fantastic. If they left, I'd be happy for them. Especially if they're going to leave and go on to where they they're not there trapped in this emotional upset, this sadness, the heaviness that building has.
But
every time I find a spirit, I start to talk to them to see if I could get them to leave, to go ahead. Tell them they're free to go.
Mm-hmm. I've heard people say that.
By the way, that's my purpose. I try and help spirits pass from where they're stuck.
Uh-huh. I've heard from many people that spirits stay behind because they don't want to face possible judgment.
That's true.
Okay.
Fear of God, we have that in life.
But wait a second. Hold on here.
Whoa. Love so much for someone else.
You're doing it
they
again.
They hope that their love comes back to meet them.
You're doing it again. You're talking over me.
Sorry.
What about the part where God, Jesus died for our sins so that no one has to worry about what happens when they die? Right or wrong? That everybody goes to heaven. Right or wrong? What about the redemption?
It's true, but they don't say in that there's no promise that you instantly die and go to heaven.
Well, there's nothing that says a person's spirit roams the earth either.
There's a school of thought that believes that you can do whatever you want in life because Christ died on the cross for our sins. To do what you want, you're saved anyways.
That's
There's
a school of thought
that thinks that because Christ died on the cross for our sins, that we should work to be better people. We should work on ourselves to be more infallible. Although we err, even though we're human, we err, we forgive, we're divine.
Yeah.
I mean, it has a lot to do with how we are as persons.
Where does the line exist between crossing to a point where there's disrespect to those who have departed, whether they're spirits, whether they're ghosts, whether they're whatever? When is it disrespectful? And why do people go into graveyards and why are they sacrilegious? A graveyard is hallowed grounds. No one should be there except the families of those who have passed and who are grieving and paying respect. What gives a ghostbuster or a paranormal investigator the right to actually go to hallowed ground and desecrate it because they're looking for spirits?
Depends upon your methodology and how you go to look at it.
No. I don't buy that at all. Trespassing is trespassing.
Well, first of all, most of us respectfully would talk to the people who would not go with trespassing.
Do you talk to the families of the departed that are buried there, or do you just talk to the administrators of the graveyard? What would
gotten permission from the administrators?
Well, but what would the families say if researchers, so-called researchers, asked them if they could go into the graveyards where their families are buried, the members of the family are buried, because they want to see if there are spirits? How would you feel? I certainly wouldn't give my permission. Would you?
I probably wouldn't either, but like I said, I don't take groups into graveyards to investigate. Now, you have groups that go in graveyards to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
We do earlier tours through a graveyard, but we also assist with them raising money for the preservation of their church, of their graveyard. It's the oldest graveyard in Charleston.
So am I
a lot of the tours about historic funeral practices.
So am I to believe, based on what you just said, that bringing people through graveyards is a way of raising money to keep the graveyard in business or kept up?
In Charleston, in the early culture, they have courting benches in the back of our graveyards. They were public areas where people would stroll through. People would court in them. They called them pleasure gardens.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't considered graveyards like people may look in other places.
Okay. And?
They didn't consider it desecration to take your loved one in there and sit on the bench and look at the gravestones of your loved ones in court. I mean, that's the kinds of things we're talking about when we're on these tours. The church must not mind that much. They've had actual functions going on in the church when we've been giving the evening tours. Mm-hmm. They hear what we say. The families hear what we say. They know what we say. It's not every tour company in Charleston that has the right to go in that graveyard. It is just the guys from Bulldog. And those of us who hold that responsibility have a key, and we take it very seriously. And when we walk in there, we do treat them with respect. We remind people to stick to the paths and that these are the oldest members of the society. These are our founding fathers.
Why does Bulldog have the only key?
Because we assist the church in the preservation of the church and the yard. The church itself, the building sitting there, dates back to 1892. Mm-hmm. It has stained glass windows that need care. The oldest gravestone in there, the upright stones, date back to 1723. They need care. Mm-hmm. So there's various aspects to it. I know it sounds bad that you're raising money, but that money actually helps them to preserve the church, the grounds, and the stones, and all the crypt tops that are in there. So I think that's why probably a lot why the families do not get so upset about it.
I guess it saves the church money instead of having to spend the money on the preservation of this graveyard and property. They can spend their money on something else.
We are reminded when we go into places like that to have respect.
All right, stand by. I've got to take my final break for this hour. X-Zone Nation, Karen MARR is our guest. BulldogTours.com. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com. Welcome back, everyone. Karen MARR is our guest, bulldogtours.com. Karen, based on your experience, where is the most haunted place in Charleston, South Carolina?
Probably the square the jail's built on, because of being a pauper's field with the jail built over top of it.
And what kind of hauntings or paranormal activity do you have there?
Everything from sightings, things filmed, people have been grabbed, people have been pushed, kicked. There's been people have left with rope marks on them, bitings. It depends upon how they how they go towards a ghost, how they actually go to attracting communication. If it's familiarity, it'll be a light touch. They'll get pictures. If they set up something with a cue on the floor and a piece of tape with a camera on it, they'll get activity that way. They, like most of the ghost shows and some of these other people were discussing, they come in a building, they are trespassing, and they begin to speak very disrespectfully. They cuss at them. They scream at the building things that nobody would ever want to say to them. It's offensive. It would make you angry. And that's why they get reaction.
So what are your final thoughts for the X-Zone Nation tonight when it comes to the proper way of doing a research investigation into the paranormal?
Folks, say your prayer before you go in. You're cleansing yourself. Remember, the only spirit to ever call to you is God and Jesus Christ. The spirits that you speak to otherwise are spirits that are where you go, where they are. You do not call them to you. Otherwise, treat them with respect. Remember, those were people once too, and if it's something you wouldn't want someone to do to you, please don't do it to a spirit.
All right, Karen, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. X-Zone Nation, Karen MARR has been our guest. Her website is bulldogtours.com. I don't know, I have a bit of a problem with these Ghostbusters or so-called Ghostbusters or paranormal researchers who do it for the thrill, the excitement. What about the people that they're disrespecting? What about the families of the living, the spirits and memories of the dead? I find it very offensive. I really do. You know, like, hallowed ground, for God's sake. Do you really need to get thrills so bad that you go chasing the dead? Don't forget, they were alive at one time. So why chase them? Let them rest in peace. Get your thrills by going to the local arcade, playing a pinball machine. And what proof are you going after? If these ghosts are making themselves so well known about pushing people, pinching them, biting them, isn't that proof enough that they're there? What do you really need the proof for? What are you going to accomplish? If you're trying to accomplish there's life, if you're trying to find proof that there's life after death, my goodness, getting pinched, bit, tossed, pushed, shoved, isn't that proof enough for you? I don't see very much proof. All I see is a lot of hype, a lot of speculation, and a lot of people who have way too much time on their hands. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. You know, 25 years of doing this show, thousands of guests, and we're no further ahead today than we were all those years ago. If you do get the proof, what happens then? You know, I believe there's a conspiracy within the ghost world as there is in the UFO world, that it's the ghost people who are keeping the conspiracy alive because they're making money. Follow the money. That's what life is all about. We'll be back. Don't go away.